Hey everyone, welcome back to the range. My name is Matt. Over here, we're no stranger to the FN 5.7x28mm, and from time to time, some may consider me a subject matter expert. For review today is our FN Mark III or MRD. In full transparency, my good buddy Dorn over at FN Specialties / Armory of Kings sent over this Mark III MRD to review with no strings attached. This gun was actually released in 2022, and for the last year and a half, I've tried to gain access to FN America's media site to do T&E. They actually have just a little registration portal where you fill out all your digits and whatnot, and you hit the register button, and supposedly after 5 to 7 days, they will allow you access, and you can do testing and evaluation or something of the sort. But they apparently want to pick and choose who they will let have access to that portal, and I've been unable to do so. I feel slightly saddened, but at the same time, James Reeves over at TFB says they've shunned him as well. The 5.7, as most of us know it, is the USG model, and that was introduced in 2004. The IOM, or Individual Officer model, and some other previous models preceded that. Around 2013, our Mark II model variation was introduced, and then here last year, 2022, our Mark III or MRD model was introduced. Core functionality and internal operations of these models over the last 20 years has largely remained unchanged. All of our 5.7 guns operate on a cam delayed blowback system. Given we're the data guys over here, we start all our reviews out with our basic specifications so you guys don't have to go hunting and pecking for information that I should include anyways. Our overall length is 8.2 inches. Our width is 1.35 inches. Our height is 5.6 inches without the red dot. Our weight, as you see pictured here with an empty mag, is 25.7 ounces. FN's website says that it weighs that without the magazine, which weighs 2 ounces, so I'm not sure what that weight discrepancy is, but it has largely remained unchanged over our 5.7 variations. Our barrel length is 4.75 to 4.8 inches depending on how you measure it. It is 1 in 9 twist with a quote-unquote target crown. Our magazines are polymer and are available in 10 and 20 round variants. There are 2 included. The Mark III has its own magazine that are somewhat backwards compatible with the older models. They tend to lock in, but older models don't lock into the Mark III without modifying the base plate. Our MSRP is a whopping $1,509. Color options are all black or flat dark earth, and our serialized portion is our frame on the right hand side here. Starting in the front, our OE barrel, you can kind of make out whatever this target crown is. It looks like the chamfer is the same on all of our previous generations. Our sights are very tall and will co-witness with various micro red dots. We have a Trijicon RMR on here, and our rear is adjustable. The rear is the beefed up adjustable model carried over from our Mark II. Most think our 5.7 slide is completely polymer, and it's actually only a cover. There is a metal slide underneath. The original USG slide cover is on top. Here is our Mark II, and then of course our MRD. All variations support rear cocking ears. The Mark II added our front cocking serrations, and the Mark III of course has revised them. The slide cover on the Mark III has been tapered to be thinner up front. It of course is a little taller if we look at this little side-by-side picture. We also have the advantage on our Mark III of mounting a red dot to it with various mounting plates. Be advised, FN does not use 632 or metric mounting screws. They use 640, and you'll need quite a long one because you're actually mounting the optic and the plate all in one motion. Typically some other mounting solutions, if you use a plate, you would mount the plate to the gun first and then the optic on top of it. Under the slide cover is a one-piece machine slide that was originally upgraded on the Mark II from the USG's multi-piece welded slide. We have our forward-mounted ambidextrous, if I said that right, frame-mounted safety. On the left side, we have our takedown button, as well as our slide stop and release. and a small loaded chamber indicator. The Mark III sports a slightly larger reversible magazine release. It only goes one way, so you have to turn it around if you want to be a southpaw. The trigger shoe is metal and very solidly mounted, and the action type is single action with an internal hammer. Our trigger pull weight on this particular model measured right at 6 pounds even. Overall, the travel for me is largely unchanged since the USG. I like the break and reset on this particular trigger and the good audible and tactile reset. There's our initial take up, kind of a wall there. Just maybe a tiny bit of over travel, but not. Here is our reset. A little bit more take up there. The Mark III has a full 1913 Picatinny rail up front with 5 slots. The frame has an upgraded multi-texture surface, and if you've held any FN guns, you know the texture is very grippy. Our Mark III MRD is no exception. Field stripping R5.7 is rather easy to do, but it is different than some conventional pistols. We have a little takedown lever here on the side. Obviously, you need to make sure your gun is clear. And I'm going to murder this because I'm trying to do this upside down. But you want to pull the slide back ever so slightly, and you're going to pull this lever to the back, and then you'll slide and pull the cover off there. Here is our internal guts. We've got a metal rail here. There you can see our little internal hammer. We have our trigger bar just on one side. Our recoil spring on our 5.7 guns, at least from FN, are captured on our barrel here. So it's a one-piece barrel. There's some little snap rings and a collar up here that retain that. We do have a firing pin safety on our 5.7 models. In order to reassemble, you just follow the reverse directions. You push your little barrel in there, and then you'll take the slide and frame, and you want to put this little U-notch right here, right about here in the middle, and you push them together, pull it back. Your takedown lever will come all the way forward if you've done it right, and you should be able to rack our pistol here. Unlike other pistols, our FN 5.7 feeds from a double stack and double feed magazine. If you are loading them, load them just like an AR magazine. You want your rim pretty much all the way to the rear, and you just push straight down. You can do it where you get the rim close to the back, and then you push that way, but you don't want to load them like a traditional handgun magazine where you're trying to push this down here and then push the bullet all the way to the back. That's kind of a loser way of doing it. Just push them straight down like that. I found that the FN polymer magazines are fairly easy to load to capacity. Our OEM mags, again, are polymer with a metal reinforcement lip. Aftermarket Pro mags typically lack that metal reinforcement and can be problematic when fully loaded. If you do not disable the factory magazine disconnect safety on our guns, I found our magazines drop free with a good amount of force. Yes, these guns have a factory mag safety in them, so if you have the magazine removed from the gun, you cannot pull the hammer on the gun. So otherwise, this particular model drops free fairly well. Even with it locked back, we still have a good amount of force that magazine is falling out of there. It does have a fairly good sized base plate on here so that if it does not drop free, you can actually get in there and rip the magazine out. Our FN 5.7 barrel does not have a feed ramp per se. It's more of a flared opening to help feed these little speedy guys into our chamber. I wouldn't be an ammo nerd if I didn't take a small minute out of our review to mention the ballistics of our 5.7. Now I know 5.7 isn't everyone's favorite caliber, but there are those watching who want kind of a recommended list for top performing ammunition. And again, this is all your mileage may vary. This is based on the data that I've collected over the years. I always want at minimum a round that can penetrate to at least 12 inches in ballistics gel. Anything you read about the FBI says penetration is number one. Expansion is good and it is gladly welcome if we can have it. But if we're not getting to at least 12 inches in gel penetration, that can be a problem and could cause an issue not stopping a threat. So my recommendations are based on that. My top picks have always been our Elite Ammunition T6B or our Vanguard Outfitters Black Dragon Fang, Elite Ammunition's Devastator 2.0 or their 3.0, I know corny names, They also have the S4, which is our SS-195-198 bullet driven at a hotter velocity. We also have our Protector 1, which is a 40 grain VMAX driven at over 1900 feet per second, or on our weapon systems R37X or AAC or anyone else's 40 grain VMAX at velocities over 750 feet per second. I used to recommend our Spear Gold Dot as a good alternative for those who want that good expansion deep penetrations, but after 2020 they redesigned the bullet to more like a rifle projectile, and when fired from our handgun velocities, which they slowed down 100 feet per second, we get very poor expansion. We do get good penetration, but the expansion isn't great, and you can get better performance out of a VMAX. I like to mention SS-198 and SS-190 in there, but they're more on the bottom of my list, again, because of that reduced penetration. 8 to 10 inches is what you'll see out of those loads. Now, on the flip side, if you're looking for all-out good performance against all types of soft body armor level 3A, then SS-190 is going to be a top pick, but it also commands the most price because you can't just go to the store and buy it. I put approximately 600 rounds through our 5.7 Mark III MRD since I got it back in August. A majority of those rounds have been through our 5.5-inch EFK barrel, which was a pre-production sample that Doran sent over that was revised to fit this different slide cover. We've had a dozen or so various failures to cycle, but honestly, a majority of that has been from our weaker 40 grain loadings during testing. We've even had a couple of failures to cycle with SS-198 as well, but I just can't seem to find a root cause for that unless we just need to put more rounds down range in this gun. For me, I've always personally liked the frame-mounted forward safety. I've trained my trigger finger to go there when drawing or not firing the gun, so actuating that is very easy to do. On the flip side, if you like to use your support thumb in a more forward position, you can also actuate that safety with that as well. I do like our single action trigger, although the pull weight is a little too high for me from the factory. I always prefer, a 3 to 5 pound trigger. Overall, after having a couple of guns accurized from Elite Ammunitions, I still personally prefer our flat face trigger from Eden Perfection at the top, and then the next would be our Elite Ammunitions trigger shoe. Adding the ability for co-witness red dots is a huge win for me. Previously, the only way possible to do so was replacing the rear sight, or on our Mark II, adding the Doran Technologies new polymer cover and their RDS mount, but the disadvantage to that is you are elevating the optic way above the top of our slide, whereas on our Mark III, we've got this right underneath the slide and we co-witness with our sights. While our slide release is not ambidextrous, I can actually actuate it with my left trigger finger. On most guns, doing that would be next to impossible because I'm a southpaw. Our grip texture has been subdued slightly over the USG and Mark II, but it feels very good to me in the hand. I don't like how FN redesigned the magwell and base plate on our magazines, making them gun specific and potentially increasing the cost that you would have to incur if you needed to buy more magazines if you already owned one of the 5.7s. I will say our 5.7 magazines from FN are the easier ones for me to load to capacity, and they have the most internal dimensions lengthwise if you have any bullets that tend to run a little longer in the overall length if you're doing any reloading. Given that we haven't had a lot of rounds down range, I haven't found any negative things that would stop me from recommending this gun other than our price. As I mentioned early in the review, after 20 years, a majority of the internals of this gun remain unchanged. You can actually swap all of these slide covers and frames around with each other, even with the original USG, if you have a Mark II little barrel. Drop a little picture in here for how you tell them from the original USG barrel. So I figured with the introduction of other competitors in our market space, we've got the Ruger 5.7, we've got the Smith & Wesson M&P 5.7, and we've even got the ultra-affordable Palmetto State Armory 5.7 Rock. I would have figured FN would lower the price of this gun to compete with those offerings. And on the flip side, what do? They increase the price of it, I think, over $100 over the Mark II, pushing it upwards of over $1,500. Overall, I like the addition of being able to add a red dot sight to our 5.7 Mark III that does co-witness with our iron sights and its long proven work history. But on the flip side, I find myself gravitating towards the Palmetto State Armory 5.7 Rock, mainly because it has better ergonomics. You know, hey, it fits my hand better. It's lower price point, and it's better out-of-the-box options to also include the ability to mount a red dot sight and a factory threaded barrel. With all that being said, it's time for me to get the heck out of here. But at the end of all my videos, I take a moment to thank all those who help make these possible, because there's a lot that goes into them. Number one is my wife, who's running the cameras behind me, and she's reading a book and yawning. Hopefully everything is working. Number two is my Patreon subscribe star and YouTube channel members. I have that enabled, so if you are looking for different ways to support the channel, every little bit helps me. I have a link tree in the description below, where applicable, various different types of discount codes or affiliate tracking links that cost you nothing, and they earn me a sales commission. And what do I do with that? A lot of times I buy more ammunition because I shoot a lot of 5.7. I think on my spreadsheet over the last 3.5 years, I've put close to 10,000 rounds of 5.7 through all these various different 5.7 guns that I have. I think I'm up to 15 now. Number two is my buddy Doran over at Armory of Kings /FN Specialties. Again, in full transparency, sent us this Mark III and that EFK 5.5-inch barrel for us to demo with no strings attached. And of course, number three is you all for watching. Until next time, I'll catch you at the range. We're going to see what the weight limit is for cycling our 5.7 MRD with a suppressor. We have a Yankee Hill R9 on here first. Direct thread. Trying. Looks like that is too heavy to run our gun reliably. Now we have our little 4-ounce rimfire can. Much better cycling.